So guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. So guys, Anthony Joshua has made some comments about Deontay Wilder. Basically saying Deontay Wilder, he doesn't know anyone that goes to war with only one weapon. He goes, Deontay Wilder is not an elite fighter. And he goes, I'm not one of those tomato cans that Deontay Wilder has been knocking out. I'm a top fighter. He said something on those lines. Guys, I've got my opinions about it. I think a lot of people, when people say elite, there's a lot of different meanings to elite. And I personally have my opinions on what I think is elite and what I think is not elite. Deontay Wilder hasn't got the greatest skill set in the world. Joshua's right. He's got one weapon. He's got serious punching power. But, you know, he is limited from a skill set point of view. He hasn't got the greatest skills in the world. The fact of the matter is he doesn't need to have the greatest skills in the world to clean out most of the heavyweights in today's era. That skill set is capable of beating most of the heavyweights today. And I do agree with AJ that Wilder's not an elite fighter. But I don't think Anthony Joshua is an elite fighter either. I think Joshua's an elite heavyweight. I think Deontay Wilder is an elite heavyweight. But I don't think either of them are elite fighters. I think they're both elite heavyweights, without question. In today's time, you have to. I don't think you can question that both guys are, you know, very dangerous and capable of beating any other heavyweight out there. For me, that's an elite heavyweight. If you're able to compete with the best in your era, right? And for me, I feel like Wilder's getting unnecessary stick. He lost to the best heavyweight in the world. I know his resume is not great, and I know AJ's got a very good resume, and he's got a way better resume than Fury and Wilder put together. I get that. I respect AJ's resume. I respect what he's done. And I think he's got one of the best resumes in British boxing in the last 20, 30 years. He has got one of the best. You know, alongside Froch, alongside Khan, alongside some of the other Hay and guys, I feel like he's got one of the best. And he fought decent fighters. However, we've got to be real about it. For me, an elite. Here's the thing. For me, an elite fighter are very, very few fighters. They're fighters that are, for me, that are very few. They're elite status for a reason. They're very, very few and far between. An elite fighter to me is Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, you know, Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, Floyd Mayweather, guys like that in the modern era. Roy Jones. Those are elite fighters for me. And I think you'll all agree that Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder don't fit into that category. However, there's a difference between an elite in the division and an elite fighter, right? An elite in a division, right, means you're one of the best heavyweights, which Wilder and Joshua are. They're one of the both of them are one of the best heavyweights. That don't mean that they can't be beat by any of the other heavyweights. So 100%, they're elite. They're elite heavyweights, not elite fighters for me. Like elite fighter, like I said, are the names that I just took: Hagler, Hearns, Duran, Lennox Lewis, Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali. You know, those are elite fighters. Those are elite. They're elite status fighters. That's what you call an elite fighter. In the modern era, Canelo Alvarez, Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao, they're elite fighters. That's what you call elite fighters. And like I said, Wilder or nor Joshua, for me, fit in that kind of category. They're not in the same league as that. But Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, for me, are elite heavyweights of today. They're elite, no doubt about it. Joshua's one of the best heavyweights in the world, and so is Wilder. Joshua may become elite, and Wilder may become elite. Even though he lacks skill set, he may become elite. If Wilder beats Fury and then beats Joshua, you're not going to tell me that Wilder's not elite. You're not going to tell me Wilder doesn't go down as an all-time great if he beats Fury and Joshua. And if Joshua beats Tyson Fury, right, and then has more defense, Joshua will go down an all-time great as well. But Joshua, for me, he still hasn't, I have said this before, that I think he's got a great resume and he's fought the better fighters without question, but he hasn't fought the best fighters. He hasn't fought Wilder. He hasn't fought Fury. He hasn't fought Usyk yet, or he's going to fight Usyk. We're going to find out a lot more in this fight. I think Usyk's a problem. For me, these are three very, very dangerous fighters for him. But the marquee fight for me, that I want to see him even over Usyk, is Wilder and Fury. Those are the two guys that I want to see Joshua fight. And if Joshua beats both those guys, then 100% Joshua is an elite fighter. He goes into that category. But as of right now, Joshua's an elite heavyweight of today. He's not an elite fighter. Like I said, you're not going to put Joshua in the category of a Hearns, Hagler, Ali, Larry Holmes, or Lennox Lewis, are you? He's not in the same category right now. But he may well, by the end of his career, may well be. Who knows? Joshua's a world-class fighter. He's not an elite fighter, world-class fighter. There's a difference between a world-class fighter and an elite fighter. Elite fighters are fighters that are, for me, all-time greats. They've beaten elite fighters. Joshua, for me, hasn't beaten an elite fighter. Like, I know Klitschko was in his prime, you could say, an elite fighter. But Klitschko fought in an era which was very poor. And Klitschko was 41 when Joshua fought him. And he was coming off a loss. He's 41 years of age. Povetkin, again, 38 years of age. Some of the best guys that he's fought were really old. Pulev, 39 years of age. 40, whatever he was. Dillian White was green at the time. Brazil, Ruiz, he lost to him and then he beat him in the rematch. Fair enough, decent win. But Ruiz isn't an elite fighter. Ruiz, Ruiz for me, you could say he's an elite heavyweight, yes. But he's not an elite fighter. So for me, I feel like he's got to beat Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. And by the way, I think Fury for me is on his way to be elite, especially if he beats Joshua, he beats Wilder and Joshua. Then for me, Fury is on his way to become an elite fighter, and I think Fury will go down as an all-time great. I think he's the one that I think out of the heavyweight division, from what I see right now, I feel he's the one that's gonna go on to be, become that all-time great and be mentioned in the names that I mentioned. But Joshua could easily be that man. I think most people, the reason why I'm saying that about Fury, because Fury right now is considered the best heavyweight in the world. But if, like I said, Joshua beats Fury, right? Or maybe even if he beats Wilder, if Wilder beats Fury, right? Then he'll take that spot. Joshua right now has to beat Fury or Wilder to be considered that top dog. But in terms of, him saying that Wilder's not an elite fighter, I don't think Wilder's got the greatest skills in the world, but I do think he possesses an attribute which is capable of beating any of these heavyweights. Fury's a very, very skilled fighter, very, very elusive, got great head movement. He moves around a lot. He's very hard to pin down. Joshua's more robotic. He hasn't got the head movement. He hasn't got the movement of a Fury. So he's a lot easier target for someone like Wilder to tee him up for that right hand. It's all right saying, well, the guy's only got one thing, which is the right hand. It's not. When you get in there with Deontay Wilder, it's a lot easier said than done, because he only has to land it once, and that's it. Your night's over. So I don't really understand all this hate towards Deontay Wilder. Deontay Wilder's a very, very good fighter. You don't win an Olympic bronze medal. These things don't get handed out to you, and you don't become a heavyweight champion of the world. It doesn't matter whether you think he fought nobodies or whatever. The fact of the matter is, if you put him in there with AJ, he has just as good a chance of winning that fight as AJ has of beating him. So, and with Ruiz and that, stylistically, all those guys are tailor-made. You think Pulev would beat Wilder? You think Pulev or Parker and these guys would beat Wilder? Not a chance. Not a chance. Wilder would destroy, Wilder would dismantle. Not even dismantle, he'll just knock him out. Because they don't have head movement. They're there to be hit. Wilder's very fast, very quick. You know, Wilder may not be the technically most gifted fighter out there in terms of he's got, you know, by the way, his jab is good. When he wants to use that jab, get behind that jab, Wilder's got a good jab. But the fact is, a lot of these heavyweights aren't going to be able to get out of the way of that right hand. Simple as that. Parker's not going to be able to get out. Wilder throws that right hand with a lot of force and a lot of speed. He throws it with a lot of speed. And these guys, a lot of them are flat-footed. A lot of them haven't got great head movement. They're slow. And Wilder has a very good chance of knocking these guys out. Do I think that he could be beat by those guys? Yeah, he could also be beat by those guys. But I feel like you were judging him already without him having, without it being proven. Why are we already judging Wilder without him fighting those guys? There's still a lot of questions to be answered about Deontay Wilder. But I feel like people are already making a judgment of, already coming to a conclusion without him having those fights. And the other thing is you're walking a very, very dangerous road. Because if Wilder was to knock Tyson Fury out in this trilogy, which is a possibility, right? What are you going to say then? That he got lucky? Or it was a lucky punch? Or what are we going to say then? Because everybody thinks Fury's the best heavyweight in the world. What does that say about the heavyweight division that a guy with not great skills has just beaten a guy? You see what I mean? So I think we're walking a very dangerous road by saying things like that. You know, Wilder has proven that he's a very, very dangerous fighter. And if you overlook him, there's a great chance you may be put to sleep. Wilder, for me, I know he's made all those excuses, and I understand that people are not happy with that. But at the end of the day, in terms of Wilder as a fighter, Wilder's a good fighter. It doesn't matter whether Wilder hasn't got the skill set. It's irrelevant. Wilder's a good fighter because what he does possess has got him to become heavyweight champion of the world. You don't get to become heavyweight champion of the world. You don't get to become a bronze medalist without having something about you. You just don't. It's just not possible. Whether it's just power, whether it's whatever, the fact is he achieved those things. He was a bronze medalist and he was a heavyweight champion of the world. You don't get there without having some kind of ability. It doesn't matter what you think. Get your emotional hat off and look at it logically. You don't win a bronze medal. You don't win a heavyweight championship of the world if you're no good. It doesn't matter whether you're fighting tomato cans or whatever. You just don't. You just don't. When Mike Tyson fought Buster Douglas, that was seen as a tomato can. That tomato can beat him. The only fight that Deontay Wilder has lost is against Tyson Fury. That's it. He hasn't lost to anybody else. And Tyson Fury, for me, is the best heavyweight in the world right now. So I don't see why Wilder's getting so much stick. Give him an opportunity. Let him fight Parker. Let him fight Dillian White. Let him fight Andy Ruiz. Then make your judgment. Because if he ends up destroying all those guys and knocking them out, then it makes people look silly, don't it? So give the guy a chance. Give the guy. Let's see how he gets on against Tyson Fury first in the trilogy. And even if he was to lose, I would still love to. I don't know whether Wilder will go on if he loses. I don't know where his desire will be at. But I would still love to see him fight Dillian White. I would still love to see him fight Parker, Ruiz and guys like that. Even Usyk, if Usyk was to lose against Joshua. These are some good fights to be made. But to write Wilder off and say Wilder's not great, this, that, and the other, like I said, you don't achieve the things that Wilder achieved if you don't have any kind of ability. It just doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen. You don't get to be heavyweight champion of the world if you don't have some kind of ability. Is Joshua overall a better boxer than Wilder? Yes, but that doesn't mean that he's going to beat him. That just because Joshua's a better boxer than Deontay Wilder and he has the better skill set, that doesn't mean he's going to win. Because Joshua's style plays into Wilder's hands. He's slow, Flat-footed, he has no head movement. Wilder's fast. He's explosive. That style is wrong for Joshua because Wilder, if Wilder's in there against Joshua, the longer he's in there, the greater the chance that Wilder's going to land that right hand. And when he lands on AJ, it's over. Because AJ's not going to ride the punch like Tyson Fury rides the punch. He's not going to be able to get out the way like Tyson Fury gets out the way. Tyson Fury's a lot faster than Joshua. His movement, he's naturally very fast. His head movement is way better than Anthony Joshua. Joshua doesn't have head movement, so the chances are that if Wilder lands that right hand, it's going to land flush. And we've already seen when Wilder landed on Brazil, if he lands flush, you're going to be put away in devastating fashion. Ruiz, another one. He doesn't have any head movement. Slow. And Wilder's punching down. That's going to have an even more devastating impact. So, like I said, I don't think Wilder... I agree with Joshua. I don't think Wilder's an elite fighter. But I don't think many guys are elite fighters in today's era. Because for me, elite status is only given to the really best. And unfortunately, none of the heavyweights right now, right, are, for me, elite status fighters. Fury, for me, you can argue, I think he has very elite skills. He's undefeated. But yet, his resume is still quite weak. His resume is still quite weak. Although I think he's got two of the best wins in Klitschko and Wilder, I still think he needs to do a little bit more. If he beats Joshua, then 100% he goes into that elite status. He becomes an all-time great, even though he hasn't had as many, like his resume is not deep. But I just think if he was to beat Joshua, that's it. He goes into that category for me. Like I said, elite fighters are very few and far between. Most fighters are world-class fighters. Elite fighters are your very best, like your Mayweathers, like your Pacquiaos, like your Durants, Hearns, Ali, Holmes, Lennox, Calzaghe. You know, Calzaghe was great as well. Guys like that, you know, guys of that kind of level. You know, your Roy Jones. You know, fighters of that kind of magnitude, you know, that kind of level, you know, and I don't think any of you, I think most of you would agree that Joshua and you know, Wilder, even Fury, as of right now, they don't really belong in that group yet. They have to prove themselves. It doesn't matter. I don't care whether Wilder hasn't got the greatest skills in the world, because if with the attribute that he's got, he ends up beating Fury and Wilder, Fury and Joshua, he's an elite fighter. He becomes an all-time great. It doesn't matter what his skill set is, because he would have just beaten all of the top guys in this era. So that makes him an elite fighter. He's an elite heavyweight, no question. Wilder's an elite heavyweight. Without question. He's, you know, anyone that's a top 5 heavyweight, an elite heavyweight. You know, anyone that held the world title belt for 5 years, you know, beating Ortiz, which I believe was a very good win, right? Knocking him out twice come on, it's an elite fighter. But anyway, you know, I think there's a lot of people because are upset with what Wilder said with the excuses and stuff, but don't let that cloud your judgment. Wilder's a very, very good fighter, very dangerous fighter. He doesn't have to have the full repertoire and be the greatest and be textbook box. He doesn't have to be that to be an elite heavyweight of today's time. Because if he can beat with the style that he's got, beat most of them, then that's all that matters. It doesn't matter how you win. It's about winning, right? And so far, he's only lost to the best heavyweight out there. So, you know, and he's going to try revenge that. He's going to try avenge that loss. So let's see how he plays out. Don't come to a judgment without, you know, everything playing out. But leave your thoughts, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.